Hi and welcome to our new YouTube tutorial. In this video we're going to create a clock with the HTML, CSS and JavaScript. It's going to be a standard clock which you probably have at home on the wall. We have here numbers for hours and also 3 different arrows which indicate the hours, minutes and seconds. As I said, this project is going to be created based on HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So I expect that you already know some basics of those 3 core technologies. Alright, let's go ahead and start to create a project. I have a new folder on the desktop called clock, which right now is empty. Let's open it in VS Code and create our working files for HTML, CSS and JavaScript. I'm going to call them index.html, style.css and script.js. Then open the index.html file and create a basic HTML document. For that we need to place here an exclamation mark and then hit tab or enter. So here we have the basic HTML tags. The first thing that I'm going to do is to change the title. Let's insert here clock. And then I'm going to link CSS and JavaScript files. Let's open link tag in the head element and specify here the path of the CSS file. As for the JavaScript, I'm going to open script tag right above the closing body tag, and then we need to specify the path of the file in the source attribute. Okay, so we are ready to start. The last thing that I'm going to do is to run the project to the browser. For that I'm going to use one of the VS Code packages called a live server. It allows us to run the project live in the browser and make changes and updates without refreshing the page each time. Okay, finally, let's place browser and the editor side by side, like so, and get started. I'm going to create the HTML markup, then we will style it, we will make the elements look like the clock, and then we will make it work using JavaScript. So let's go ahead and start to create the HTML markup. Let's open the div tag, which is going to be the container. It will include the entire content. Then I'm going to open another div tag inside of the container. Let's assign to it class clock. So the clock will consist of 2 different parts. We will have the numbers and the arrows. Let's open div tag with the class numbers. We will have 4 different numbers. Let's open div tag with the class 12. And as the content, let's insert here 12. Then I'm going to duplicate this line of code 3 times and then change the class names and also the content. We need 3, then 6 and 9. Okay, and that's it about the numbers. Let's open div tag, which is going to be the wrapper of the arrows. We will have 3 different arrows. Let's open div tag with the class hour. Then I'm going to duplicate it twice and change the class names. We need here minute and second. Alright, that's it regarding the HTML markup. Right now we have here just the numbers. So let's go ahead and start to customize the clock. First of all, I'm going to bring in the link for the Google fonts. I'm going to use one of the Google fonts throughout this project. So let's go ahead and visit the Google Fonts website. Then search for one of the fonts called Concert 1. So right now we have here a text as the example, but we are interested in numbers. So we can simply change the sentence into numerals and see how the font looks like. Let's select the style. In order to link the fonts, we have 2 different options. You can either grab this link and paste it in the head element, or you can click import, grab this URL and paste it in the CSS file. Alright, so once the font is selected, next I'm going to reset some default styles. Let's select all the elements using an asterisk and get rid of default margin and padding. I'm going to set both of them to 0 and also change the font family for every element. Let's use here our Google font Concert 1 cursive. Alright, so as you can see, now the numbers look in a kind of different way. Throughout this project, I'm going to use RAM as the measurement unit. Right now, 1 RAM equals 16 pixels because the font size of the HTML element is equal to 16 pixels. I want to convert 1 RAM into 10 pixels. Therefore, we have to decrease the font size of the HTML element and make it 62.5%. So, as you can see, the numbers became smaller. Next, I'm going to take care of the container. Let's select it. And first of all, let's define its width and height. I'm going to set width to 100%. As for the height, I'm going to make it 100% of the viewport. So we need 100 VH. Next, I'm going to place the content of the container in the center. And for that, let's use Flexbox. We need to set display to flex. And then for horizontal and vertical centering, we need justify content center. And also align items center. Alright, so now the content is placed in the center and we can customize the clock itself. Let's go ahead and select clock and define its width and height. I'm going to set both of them to 35 RAM. Also change the background color. I'm going to make it gray using color AC. Next, I'm going to make the clock rounded. For that, we have to use border radius with value 50%. Then let's create a little border. Let's set its width to 0.5 RAM. Then make it solid. As for the color, let's use 777. And lastly, let's create a little shadow effect on all 4 sides. Use box shadow with the values 0.5 RAM twice, then 1 RAM, and as the color, let's use 555, and then I'm going to place here minus 0.5 RAM twice, 1 RAM, and the same color. Alright, that's it regarding the clock. Next, I'm going to take care of the numbers. Let's select the wrapper div element and define width and height. In this case, we need to inherit the same width and height from the parent element, which is a clock. So we need to set width and height, both of them to inherit. Alright, after that, I'm going to select all div elements inside of the numbers. So at first, we're going to position the numbers. Let's set the position to absolute. Then, in order to position the numbers according to the parent element, we need to set the position of the numbers to a relative. And after that, let's increase the font size of the numbers, make it 2.5 RAM. Alright, so now I'm going to position each number separately. Let's go ahead and start with the 12. It's going to be placed at the top of the clock. So let's select it and set its position to 1 RAM. Then we need to center it horizontally. For that, I'm going to set left position to 50%. And then for perfect centering, we have to use transform with the translate x function. And we have to translate the element by minus 50%. Alright. Next we have 3. Let's select it. In case of 3, we need right position to be 1 RAM. And then we have to center element vertically. So we need to set top position to 50%. And in this case, we need transform, translate y minus 50%. Let's go ahead and take care of the rest of the numbers. The next one is 6. In this case, we need bottom position to be 1 RAM. And then let's grab those 2 lines from here. As for the last number, which is 9, we need left position to be 1 RAM. And then we need those 2 lines here as well. Alright, so all 4 numbers are positioned. Next, I'm going to change the color. Let's make it white. And also create a little shadow effect. Use text shadow with the values 0.2 rem 3 times and the color 222. Okay, that's it regarding numbers. Let's move on and take care of the arrows. First of all, let's define its width and height. Like numbers, I'm going to inherit width and height from the clock. Let's set both of them to inherit. Next, I'm going to define the position. Let's make it absolute. In this case, the element will jump out of the normal flow of the page. And in order to position it according to the parent element, we need position relative for the clock. Next, let's define the top and left properties. I'm going to set both of them to 0. The arrows should be placed in the center of the clock, and in order to achieve that, I'm going to use again flags box. We need display flags, and then justify content center and align items center. Alright, that's it about the wrapper. Next, I'm going to create this little circle. It's going to be created using the before pseudo element. So let's select arrows followed by the before pseudo element. Let's make the content empty. Then define width and height, and also the background color. I'm going to set width and height to 2.5 rem. As for the background color, it's going to be white. So here we have the elements. Right now it has the shape of the square, so let's make it a circle. And also let's make a little shadow effect. Let's set border radius to 50%. As for the shadow, let's use box shadow with the values 0.2 rem twice, then 0.5 rem, and as the color, let's use 777. Alright, that's it about the circle. Let's go ahead and take care of the arrows. Right now they are not visible because we have just the empty div elements. Let's go ahead and select all div elements inside of the arrows. First of all, let's define width and height and also the background color. I'm going to set width to 0.7 rem. Then the height is going to be 12 rem. As for the background color, I'm going to use color FFF05. So now the elements are visible. Next, I'm going to take care of their positions. I'm going to place them in the center of this circle. So let's set position to absolute and then define bottom position, make it 50%. Okay, after that I'm going to add a little shadow effect to the arrows. Let's use box shadow with the values 0.2 rem twice, then 0.5 rem, and the color 777. Okay, lastly, let's change the shape of the elements in order to make them look like the arrows. I'm going to do that using border radius. So the border radius takes 4 different values. The top left and top right corners will be 100%. As for the bottom right and bottom left corners, I'm going to make them zeros. So as you can see, now the elements look like the arrows. Right now we see here just one arrow, but all 3 arrows are displayed. They are placed on top of each other. The next thing that I'm going to do is to place the arrows behind this circle, and for that we can use the z-index property with some higher value than 0, let's say 10. Alright, after that I'm going to customize the arrows separately. Let's start with the seconds because it is placed on top of the rest of the arrows. I'm going to change the background color. Let's set it to 24CFE6. So right now nothing is changed, and it happens because we have already changed the background color of the arrows when we selected them using the div tag, and it has a higher precedence. In order to override this style, we need to select the element using the parent element, I mean arrows. So now the background color is changed. Besides that, I'm going to rotate the arrow. Let's use transform with the rotate function, and I'm going to rotate the arrow by, let's say, 270 degrees. Right now the arrow is rotated from the center because by default the origin of the transformation is set to center. In this case we need to make the origin of the transformation bottom center. So now, as you can see, the problem is fixed. Next, let's take care of the hour. Like the second, we need to select it using the parent element because we're going to decrease its height. Let's set its height to 10 rem, and also I'm going to rotate the arrow. Let's rotate it by 90 degrees. Alright, so finally the clock is customized and everything is ready to make it work. As we said, we're going to do that using JavaScript, so let's go ahead and open the script.js file. The first thing that I'm going to do is to select all three arrows. So let's go ahead and create a new variable. I'm going to call it hour. Then select the arrow using query selector method. Let's specify here the class name hour. Then I'm going to duplicate this line of code twice. Let's change the name of the variable. We need minute, and also we need here class minute. And then we need here second, and as the class name, let's insert here second as well. Alright, after that I'm going to create a function. Let's call it setDate. So inside that function we will manage to work the arrows properly, and then we will call this function after every second using the setInterval method. First of all, I'm going to create a variable which will give us the current date. I'm going to call it now. It should be equal to new date. Let's see in the console what this variable gives us. I'm going to run console.log now. And next I'm going to call this function, but with the setInterval method. Actually, this method allows us to execute the function with some intervals. It takes two arguments. The first one is the name of the function. In our case, it's setDate. As for the second argument, it's the amount of the interval expressed in milliseconds. In our case, it's going to be 1000 milliseconds. Okay, let's inspect the page and switch to the console tab. So, as you can see, we are getting here the current date and time, and also the time zone after each second. Alright, next we need to define the seconds, minutes and hours separately. So let's create a new variable. I'm going to call it getSecond. In order to get the seconds from the current time, we have to use one of the built-in date methods called getSeconds. So we need now.getSeconds. If we check this variable in the console, then we will get seconds. In the same way, we have to define minutes and hours. So let's duplicate this line of code twice and then change the names of the variables and also the names of the methods. We need getMinutes and getHours. Alright, so all three variables are created. As you can see, our clock has the shape of the circle and the size of the circle is equal to 360 degrees. We need to convert seconds, minutes and hours into degrees in order to define the portions of the movement of each arrow. Let's go ahead and start with the seconds. I'm going to create a new variable. Let's call it, let's say, second degree. So in order to convert seconds into degrees, we need to use the following formula. We need to divide the current amount of seconds by 60 because we have 60 seconds, and then we have to multiply it by 360. Alright, so now we already can make the second arrow move. For that we have to rotate it by the second degree. So we need second dot style dot transform equal to rotate function, and as the value we have to pass here second degree followed by the degrees. So as you can see, now the arrow is moving after each second and it shows us the current seconds. In the same way we have to convert minutes and hours. Let's duplicate this line of code twice. So we need here minute degree, then get minute. Next we need hour degree and get hour. In this case we have to divide it by 12 because overall we have 12 hours. Alright, finally we need to define the values of the rotate function for the minutes and the hours. Let's duplicate this line of code twice. We need here minute.style, and also we have to pass here minute degree. As for the hour, we have to pass here hour degree. Alright, so as you can see we have here a current time and the clock is working perfectly. I hope you enjoyed this project and learned some new stuff. If you like this video, then please thumbs up, comment below, subscribe to our channel and click the bell to get notified on coming tutorials. Okay, see you next time.